Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's session on nonverbal communication. Today, we're going to discuss in depth detail about one major aspect in the communication life cycle, which is called the nonverbal communication process. As students, it's critically important. This topic assumes paramount significance in the life cycle of a student to understand, apply, imbibe, and finally implement the process of nonverbal communication in their day-to-day lives, which includes their professional life, their private lives, their social lives, etc., etc., etc. So, the whole communication cycle or the whole communication life cycle of an individual consists of two major components. The first one is called the verbal communication, which means what is it that you're trying to convey? What is it that you are saying actually when you are speaking? Also, it means what message, what emotions, what sentiments are you trying to convey when you are actually using words, sentences, syntax, intonation, tone, grammar, pitch, etc. Whereas in nonverbal communication also means that you're trying to communicate a lot, in fact, to the outer world. It is just that you're not speaking. So, does it necessarily mean that when you're not speaking, you're not saying anything? Well, you are actually. You're sending out tons and tons of data to the outside world, believe in me, if you can. And in the communication life cycle process, it is said that a nonverbal communication method actually helps out in sending more than 75% of communication to the outside world vis-a-vis 25% in case of a verbal communication, which also means when you're speaking, you're actually trying to send out 25% of communication, whereas when you're not speaking, you're actually sending out more than 75% of the information that you're trying to send across to the other person, from the sender to the receiver, which also means whosoever you're trying to speak to, which could be one person or a group of persons or two people, doesn't really matter. It might be in a group or an individual. So this brings us back to the quintessential question as to what is it that we consider as nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication would technically comprise of a lot of elements, which include your eye contact. Eye contact with who? Eye contact with the other person or a group of persons who you are trying to communicate with. It also means the energy and enthusiasm that you possess, how energetic and enthusiastic you are as an individual in your life. And that energy and enthusiasm is automatically transmitted to the other person as a matter of infection. Are you familiar with this word which says he has an infectious smile or she has an infectious smile? That literally translates to spreading the infection of smile to somebody else so that somebody else can pick up the cue and join the laughter club along with you. Beautiful, isn't it? So, along with energy and enthusiasm, along with eye contact, you also need to know how to dress well for the occasion, whether it's a social gathering, whether it's a professional gathering, whether it is a formal gathering or an informal gathering. You also need to know how to sit, how to move, how to walk, how to talk, and your hand movement, your feet movement, your gesticulations, your sitting postures, they're all at the end of the day going to count as part of the nonverbal communication process. And interestingly, it is said in the communication terminology that in nonverbal communication, what is it that you're saying when you're not saying anything? I will repeat that one more time. What is it that you're trying to say when you're actually not saying anything? Which essentially means what is it that you're trying to convey with the help of your hand and feet movement, your energy and enthusiasm, your eye contact, through your hand and feet movement, through your gesticulations, sitting postures, blah, 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 and blah. Okay, wonderful. So let's begin with one element at a time. Let's begin with eye contact, as a matter of fact. How many of you are familiar with this concept called a lighthouse concept? For that matter, how many of you actually know what is the meaning of a lighthouse? Okay, I'm going to tell you today. A lighthouse is essentially a tower of light, a light which is perched at the top of a concrete tower, which is usually located around a seashore and which moves continuously, or it glides continuously from one end to the other, and then from the other end to the one, and then one end to the other, and other to the one. It continuously sweeps the ocean for any lost ships. It tries to show direction to lost voyagers, to lost ships, to lost boats at night. But the point that we're trying to make here is it continuously roves from one angle to the other and from the other angle to the previous one. It continuously does this process. So when we're talking about an eye contact, more importantly, when we're talking about an eye contact with more than two people in a group, let's say if it's a formal gathering, it is very, very important to sweep your head on the shoulder of your swivel on your shoulder from left to the right and right to the left. Let's say, for example, if you're trying to greet an interview committee panel, which comprises about 3 to 4 people, the best way to do this is to swivel your head on your shoulder from left to right and then right to left and pass a gentle smile and say, "Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. And good morning, sir." You don't have to repeat this process. You just say it once or twice, and then you gently glide your shoulder, swivel your shoulder, and make a very, very healthy eye contact with everybody, so that nobody is ignored, somebody gets missed out. You just do not address one section of the audience. Another very important aspect of eye contact, rather, there's a very, very distinct difference between making an eye contact and gazing, and a distinct difference between an eye contact and leching at somebody, which means that you're staring at somebody directly into the eye, basically when you are not trying to convey anything. That sends out a very strong negative signal and makes the other person feel very uncomfortable, which might lead to the other person withdraw away from you, in some cases permanently, wouldn't like to come back to you again because you're making them feel very, very uncomfortable. So here is a trick, how to maintain a very healthy eye contact. So whenever you are trying to speak to a person, please make sure that you're looking at the other person directly in the eye, not staring into the eye. You're just looking at somebody else's eyes, whether it is him or her, doesn't really matter. And as soon as your communication is over, as soon as you're done, you're talking, please try to withdraw away from that person, especially in terms of the eye contact. And then try to establish the eye contact back again if you have to speak back to that person one more time. Do not, please, for heaven's sake, keep staring or leching back at the person. That makes the other person feel very unseated and uncomfortable in the long run, and that destroys a good rapport relationship between people. And this is regardless of men or women, but with particular focus with women colleagues, friends in the society, your neighbors, and it could apply to anybody else who's ever is a female, especially at a younger age. That makes them feel very, very uncomfortable. Okay, having discussed about eye contact, let's try and discuss about energy and enthusiasm. Please understand one thing. The difference between the energy and enthusiasm, and the difference between the energy and enthusiasm and laziness in your character is going to spell the difference between winning and losing. So when you are energetic with somebody, if you're energetic in an interview room, if you're energetic in a group discussion, if you're energetic and enthusiastic in a social environment, if you're energetic and enthusiastic in a formal or an informal environment, you will always be taking the lead and people will follow. You will look energetic. You will appear with a very cozy, smiling face. You will look very, very comfortable. You would attract a lot of people, and you'll be able to spread across a lot of that positive, infectious energy across to the other. And you should be able to draw a lot of people on your side, and you should be able to work towards a cause with the help of a lot of people in the crowd, in the gathering, in a classroom or in a society or in a club, wherever you are. It doesn't really matter. So keep spreading the positive energy and the positive infection. I'm talking to the students, especially out there. This is something that we need to inculcate over a period of time, and we need to start practicing now so that, because we are now 18 or 19, and by the time we are out of the college or out of the university, we are fully ready with the non-verbal aspects of communication. Okay, very good. Having discussed the energy and enthusiasm aspect, now let us try and discuss what is it that handshakes try to tell us about. Probably there are about 3 to 4 different types of handshakes, and let's try and understand each one of them and how are they likely to make a difference in our lives. Let's say, for example, if I'm trying to shake somebody's hand, and I am just extending my palm across to the other person, and after having held the palm of the other person, I'm trying to twist it over. What I'm trying to do essentially is I'm trying to put my palm on top of the palm of the other person. This language literally translates into, dominance, which also literally means, you're trying to dominate the other person over, no matter how hard the other person is trying to twist over, you're just not letting that person do that, and you are trying to show or exhibit sheer dominance over the other person. Or the problem there, ladies and gentlemen, is if the other person is equally dominant, the other person would also try to flip your palm around and try to establish his or her dominance. So try to avoid a dominating handshake. Try the middle path, hold somebody's palms very firmly, not very, very, very firmly, but very firmly in between, and then withdraw as soon as the handshaking is done. Just shake it twice, thrice maybe at the best, don't go beyond that, and then gently withdraw. That is as far as shaking your hands with the men are concerned. But you have to be particularly careful about shaking your hands when it comes to female colleagues or friends. I know of a friend who inadvertently shook the hand of a lady so hard that she developed a hairline fracture on her thumb. What do we call these handshakes in the formal communication world? We call them bone crusher handshakes, which means you literally are looking to crush somebody else's bone. You need to be very careful when you are shaking your hands with a lady. And particularly if a lady is standing and you're sitting and she's extending her palm for you to hold and shake her hand, please make sure that you stand up and return the favor by shaking her hand very, very gently, and then withdraw as soon as you're done. Do not keep shaking it more than twice or thrice. This again makes the other person feel very, very uncomfortable. Okay, there is a second one. How many of you have noticed people shaking their hands just with the help of their first four fingers? This is a sign of weakness and lack of confidence. Please do not ever try to shake hands merely with the help of your four fingers. This sends out a very strong negative signal of lack of self-confidence and weakness. Hold the hand or hold the palm very, very firmly, shake it twice or thrice like I said, and then gently release it and let it go as soon as you're done. Okay, the third one. This is called a wet fish handshake. This literally means, have you ever touched a wet fish? It sounds very slimy and slippery. So many of us, many of our palms sweat profusely, and inadvertently, without taking adequate care of our palms, without wiping them off gently with a tissue or a handkerchief, we just stretch out our palms and try to shake hands with somebody else, which makes the other person feel very squeamish and uncomfortable. Because of the moisture in your palm, the other person feels very, 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 very uneasy. So if you have a sweaty palm, please make sure that you wipe your palm carefully before you try an handshake or you attempt a handshake, especially with a female colleague or friend or a neighbor or your teacher or your professor. It doesn't really matter who that person is. You have to exercise special caution. Okay, how many of you have ever noticed people trying to do a handshake with folding hands like this? You'll just hold somebody else's hand and gently shake it like this, and you're stooping it slightly forward. That sends out a very strong negative sign of submission even before you've met the person. You're stooping down in front of a person using both your hands to hold somebody else's single hand, which is a gesture or a sign of weakness and lack of self-confidence. So please refrain from doing that. So next time you shake your hands with somebody, please make sure it's a firm handshake, look straight into the eye, shake it for twice or thrice, and then gently withdraw away. And there is a quick tip. If you are shaking hands with somebody, please do not look away and shake your hands. That again demonstrates a sign of weakness and lack of self-confidence. Okay, very good. Having discussed the art of handshaking, let's now move on to the art of hand and feet movement. Let's say we are standing with a cross-armed gesture in a meeting or in a classroom or anywhere else. Do you think this is a good sign? Well, no, this is not a good sign. This is a sign of a very, very defensive posture or a very, very defensive body language, which means you are not allowing information to come into you. This is basically a blocking posture, which means you're blocking influx or inflow of information. Any inbound information is getting thwarted back simply because of your blocked posture. Do you think it's a good idea to put your hands inside your pocket while you're speaking? No. Do you think it's a very good idea to gently shake your hands while you're speaking? No, it's not a very good idea. Do you think it's a very good idea to go click, 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 click with your ball pen when you're speaking? No, that's not a good idea. Do you think it's a very good idea to flip your marker around in your fingers while you're speaking? No, it's not a good idea. We call such movements as the marker man or a marker woman, the pen flipper, and the pocket finder, etc., etc., etc. Instead, stand straight. You don't have to be almost in the Savdhan or the Bishram position of the armed forces. You have to be standing very comfortably straight. And then you can deliver your speech or whatever you are doing. That is as far as hand and feet movement are concerned. Let's talk a little about how we should be sitting. So whenever you are sitting, please make sure that you're not leaning forward to the other person. That sends out a very negative signal. You're not leaning back as well. That again too sends out a very negative signal. We should not be sitting cross-legged either. That sends out a very, very negative signal. We should not be leaning forward with our palms in our cheek. That sends out a very negative signal as well. We should not be sitting with the arms crossed again. This is again a very, very defensive signal. We shouldn't be doing like that either. A very good way to sit is to sit upright, not very bolt upright. Sit medium upright with your palms gently placed on your thighs and you're looking into the eyes of the person. That's a very good idea of sitting. So this is as far as sitting postures are concerned. So before we wind up this video, a very few quick tip for your dressing guide. Please make sure that if you are in an interview environment or in a formal environment which demands that you need to wear formal clothing, please make sure that you wear a formal clothing. Please make sure that the color of your shirt matches the color of your trouser. Do not let your shirt dangle outside your trouser. And if you are tucking your shirt inside your trouser, make sure that you're wearing a waist belt. Please wear a perfume or deodorant at all time. Make sure that you're clean shaved. If you do not keep a beard, but if you do grow a beard, please make sure it is trimmed to perfection. Your hair should be groomed as well at the same time, and your shoes must be polished. I'm not asking you to wear very expensive clothing in your Armani suits or Versace suits, but please make sure that you are looking very tidy and neat on that specific day, on that specific occasion. Please wear a perfume, please wear a deodorant and a mouth freshener at all times. That applies for both ladies and gentlemen. As far as the ladies are concerned, please make sure that you wear a sari or a salwar suit or an Indian ethnic clothing whenever you are out for a social gathering or a formal gathering. You're not allowed to wear jeans or t-shirts or slacks or floaters or sneakers or any kind of casual wear. This also applies for the gentlemen if you are appearing for a formal gathering or a formal interview or a formal party or a formal press conference, or it could be any other occasion. So this was a video today, I thought, which might add some value in the life of my students on nonverbal communication. If you do have anything to talk about, please feel free to reach out to us and write down in the comment section below. How did you like the video? Thank you very much for watching.